Hi, I'm Cindy Perlin. I'm the founder and CEO of the Alternative Pain Treatment Directory, and I'm here with Sara Sunstein. We're going to be talking about healing acute and chronic pain from impact injuries. Sara is an advanced Ortho-Bionomy practitioner and instructor, and she practices in Berkeley, California. Sara, thank you for joining me tonight.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
So, how did you start doing what you're doing now?
Well, the what paradoxical or ironic is that it was through an impact injury.
Uh-huh.
um, I
If you're
was
saying, go
I
ahead.
was I was learning contact improvisation and took a really bad fall onto my tailbone,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like ah, it ended any possibility of learning contact improv. But
Mm-hmm.
a friend of mine who was a dancer said, go see this woman. She's a little crazy, but you'll really like her and she'll help you. And and so that woman became my teacher. And but with the first session, it was just one of those life-changing moments.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as she lifted up my I was lying on my back, she lifted up my legs and kind of cradled them against her and moved them this way and that way and then paused. And it was with that pause, it's like every cell in my body started sparkling. And there was like a whole body and whole feel everything recognition about this work. And she had said that she taught it. And I said, good, when's your next class? And in her wisdom, she said, let's get your back happier first. Then we'll talk about classes.
Yeah. So, how long had you been in pain at that point?
Um, do I remember? Maybe a week.
Oh, okay.
And it really was my tailbone. I don't know if I broke it or not. I never got x rays or anything, but I saw three different practitioners within the space of about 10 days acupuncture and a type of body work that's rather forceful called Lauren Berry work. And
Mm-hmm.
then the man who was doing the orthobionomy. And that was what just, as they say, blew my socks off. Um,
Yeah.
and so I continued with her. I mean, all the other things helped, but I continued with her, and it was helping chronic low back pain that I'd had for years also.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I just felt regular and functional again
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
really quickly.
So, just to clarify, when you talk about impact injuries, obviously your fall is an impact injury. What other kinds of injuries do you mean by impact injuries?
Oh, well, obviously, car accidents,
Mm-hmm.
um, fights, battering,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, and falls. Well, right, I fell onto my tailbone, but a lot of a lot of my clientele is older,
Mm-hmm.
and there are a lot of balance issues. And
Mm-hmm.
so people are just walking along and suddenly they're on the sidewalk. It's like
Wow.
what happened? Um, so those sorts of falls. Uh, what are other impacts? Oh, well, getting in the way of something. You know,
Mm-hmm.
how often are you in a park and suddenly a frisbee has attacked you? Um,
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So
And
tell us more about the technique.
um, first, I'll talk a little bit about orthobionomy and then about the
Okay.
specificities of
Okay.
impact injuries and why they have to be dealt with slightly differently. Um, orthobionomy, orthobionomy was developed by an osteopath,
Mm-hmm.
and he was also a black belt instructor of jiu-jitsu, judo. And that philosophy was saying you move with.
Mm-hmm.
And the slightest thing you can do that will throw your opponent off balance is what you do. And so when he was training in osteopathy, there was all these forceful movements. He said, huh, doesn't make any sense. And then he came upon something that said, oh, this makes sense to me. And then and that was called strain counter strain. But
Mm-hmm.
he took that ball. It was about positioning to create comfort. And he took that and modified, to, and it became orthobionomy. So, but what it involves, so it's from osteopathy, but with a lot of Eastern influence. And what number one rule is, if it hurts, it's not orthobionomy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not inflicting pain on anyone
Mm-hmm.
uh, in the name of healing. It's like we know that pain
Yeah.
makes the body contract. So
Mm-hmm.
what I'll be doing at a grosser level is moving the body into a position to create ease. So if there's shoulder pain, say it's up here, it may well be that if I lift the arm up like that, it will put slack into it, which
Mm-hmm.
then makes it not tight anymore and makes it feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then it gets way more subtle, and it might be that I'm just contacting the area and feeling for the body's subtle movements.
Mm-hmm.
It's so whatever I'm doing, it's gentle and tends to be subtle. Even these movements, people say, but you're not doing anything. Because I'm not. Once
Yeah.
I move it, I don't do anything.
Yeah. You
And
just let it settle.
if I move the neck, they say, I'm waiting for the manipulation. I said, there isn't one. This is it. And um, so, but the whole thing is no pain and to support the body's innate healing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we release the pain or the tension, and often they go together, the body's self healing, and there are a bunch of different reflexes in the body, says, oh, we can get normal again. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
thank you for holding the light so we can see what we're doing now and know what we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So so I'm not doing to, I'm supporting with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so all that said, with an impact injury, there's usually swelling. There's there's there can be bruises. There can be all sorts of stuff. Things can get knocked out of alignment. Um, and I've had clients call me saying, "Well, I called my chiropractor, but he can't see me now because he says I'm too swollen."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh, well, come in. I'll help you with that." Um, and again, if it's really swollen, my movements will be smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's we work with what is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, so with the impact injuries, the extra piece in there is involves energy. And so an impact generally there's a moving object that hits a not moving object. Except with car accidents, sometimes they're both moving, but one's moving faster than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or likewise, say in football, someone gets tackled,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're both running, but one's faster.
Right.
And so what happens to the kinetic energy, the movement energy, is it goes into the body, and then what? It kind of lodges there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can think of it as a splinter, um, and a splinter that line of force that comes into the body just lodges there usually.
Mm-hmm.
But it can say if I fell onto my elbow or my hand, I put up my hands to stop me, but I didn't do it quite right or enough. The energy can move from my hand up my arm through my neck up to my neck and head. And so you've got this line of force going all the way up. And someone will say, yeah, my hand is much better. All that swelling is gone. But my shoulder keeps hurting,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And so what I do with the impact injuries is I'll be sensing, and this is again at the super subtle level, where is that line of force? Where's that splinter that never came out?
Yeah.
And that's what makes my work with impact injuries so different from
Hmm.
others.
Hmm.
I have never actually heard of anyone else doing this other than the woman who taught me, Kathy Kane.
There's
Um,
only two people in the country who are doing it.
well, I guess all the other people who took her classes are doing it too.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know of any around here.
Uh-huh.
There must
Yeah,
be.
there's a lot of really good therapies around that, that are very helpful for pain. And there's only a few people doing them.
Right.
I'm in a field like that. I do neurofeedback, brainwave biofeedback, and
Oh,
there's at most probably throughout the world, a few thousand people who do it.
right. Right. Yeah. Ortho-Bionomy is really a small group, also.
Hmm.
I say it's the unfortunately best kept secret. Um,
Yeah. No, biofeedback and neurofeedback are the best kept secret. Because
yeah.
that's what I say about that. But yeah, there are a lot of secrets, not meant to be secrets, but
Right.
really useful therapies that people don't know about. That's why I started the alternative pain treatment directory to get
Yeah.
the word out that, I mean, so many people feel like they've tried everything and they really haven't even begun to try what's out there. They just
Exactly.
don't know it's out there or how to find it.
Yeah. When I discovered your pain directory, it's like I have no idea how I did, but it was like, yay! I am so glad she's doing this. Let me sign up. Um, yeah, and I will say that since COVID hit, I've learned how to do sessions on Zoom. So if you don't live near Berkeley,
Really?
yeah,
You can do it remotely?
yes. And I can't explain how it works.
So you're not
But
having the
it does.
person do something to themselves, you're doing something psychically, is what you're saying.
Um, I will say that at this point, what's the percentage of people who have been on Zoom in the US? Um, and most of us can pick up the feeling and
Mm-hmm.
energies of the people we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you look a little droopy today. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We
Yeah,
can all do that.
as I droop.
Or, oh, wow, you're so lit up. Tell me
Yeah,
what's happening.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, and I've been training all these years, which is, geez, close to 40. Um,
Close to 40 years you've been doing this?
yeah, my first
Wow.
class was 1982. Um, so we'll say 38. And I was doing massage for a year before I found orthobionomy. Um, so I'm trained in subtleties and looking at faces um, for shifts and this and that and the breath and just clues, somatic
Mhm.
clues about what's going
Yeah.
on.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I work with someone on Zoom, I simply pay attention. And sometimes I'm leading them in terms of self care. Oh, your
Mm-hmm.
low back hurts. Well, lie down. I mean, and I'll get some of the history, but lie down and you're complaining that your right hip is more forward than the left one. So put your hand under the right hip so it's even more forward,
Mm-hmm.
because that's
Mm-hmm.
what we do in orthobionomy.
Yeah.
Um, and she said, oh, the pain in my low back is gone,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So it becomes a more active thing. If we were in the
For the
same room,
patient.
Yeah, if we were in the same room, I would have lifted her hip more forward.
Oh,
Um,
okay. So you are instructing them to
yeah,
move this way or that, or touch this or that.
yeah. But
It's
then
not that,
also in that same session, though, I said, okay, just rest there. I'm going to work with you now. And then
mhm,
I literally pretend, the places that have been calling to me through watching, I pretend that I'm actually in the room doing them to her.
mhm,
And I'm
mhm.
moving my arms around and and I'll be able to see the breath changing.
Mhm,
And I'll ask for reports like, what do you feel now? What do you feel now? Um,
mhm,
and so we're working together, but I'm doing the hands on, hands off, whatever.
mhm,
And
mhm,
it can make a difference. And I've actually done that with, I don't know, 3 or 4 people on Zoom who had impact injuries.
mhm.
And it still worked. Finding the force vector and helping it release from the body.
Well, it for some reason it reminds me a little bit of when people have phantom limb pain. They've had an amputation, but it feels like the limb is still there and paining them.
Right.
That if somebody works with where the leg was, it seems to help.
I know. Yes. And so it's like the brain is, I can't begin to comprehend the brain and the nervous system. It's
Mm-hmm.
way beyond me,
Mm-hmm.
but I can work with it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's all I can say.
Yeah.
I'll let the neurologists figure out.
They won't be interested in figuring it out. They'll just say it's all fake. It's all smoke and mirrors and placebo effect and whatever. And
And
take your
actually, people do work with mirrors for those phantom limbs.
Mhm. Yeah, I've heard of that too. They call it mirror therapy or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah. I've never done it, but
Yeah, I've
it makes
seen it
total
talked
sense.
about. I've heard it talked about in conferences. I've never seen it done or tried it myself, but it
Yeah.
yeah, the brain is amazing. I always say that the most underutilized tool in pain management is the brain, because it's
Right.
got, it's very powerful in
Yeah.
terms
And
of healing.
you're working with it a lot with the neurofeedback stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so many ways. That's just one way to work with your brain, because, you can talk to your brain,
Yep. Yep.
We always talk to our brain, but we don't pay attention to what we're saying and, more conscious images, thoughts, even that simple kind of thing. Of course, meditation, relaxation,
Yep.
and visualization and, all that stuff is
Yeah.
really powerful.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'm also an artist and I bring in visualization
mhm,
a lot
mhm,
as it makes
mhm.
sense.
Yeah, yeah. So can you talk about, some of the patients you've worked with, what you've helped them with and what the results were?
Um, sure.
You have to pick out of the 38 years worth,
Right. It's like,
which
who do
one
I
is
want?
worth highlighting, but you
Well,
know,
one I'll mention, I have a quote from her on my website on the impact injuries page. Um, is a woman who's in her mid 40s and she teaches Pilates. And maybe I'm not supposed to say that much, but anyway, she's very aware of her body.
mhm,
And she had an appointment, but that morning on her way to work, she was in a car accident. Not a real big one, just a little bump. So it's not like she had to go to the hospital or deal with much other than exchanging insurance and such. But she said she'd been off all day and out of her body and had a headache all day.
mhm,
And so I worked with her doing some of the impact release and certainly working with the neck, which is the first, usually the first piece that goes in a car accident.
right. Yeah,
and
it's hanging there loose.
yeah, being jarred from
Yeah.
whatever direction it came. And in that one session, because the injury wasn't horrible and it was just, we can talk about acute, right? It's right then. She said, "Oh, well, the headache's been gone and I feel like I'm back in my body.
Hmm.
I'm no
Hmm.
longer out of sorts. It's like I have me back."
Yeah.
Um, so that was very gratifying.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and let's see, someone else who had been a, let's say, radical bicyclist. He bicycled through Europe and the East and much of Asia and
Wow.
got himself to Nepal or India or both.
Wow.
And
All
but
by bicycle
yes, well,
without.
he did say that there's some desert east of Pakistan, and he said, the guard wouldn't let him go on, the border guard or whatever,
Hmm.
and he even offered a bribe, and the guard would not take a bribe,
Mm.
and so this cyclist said, "I realized it was really, really dangerous."
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
he took the
Hmm.
bus.
But everything else, he got to each place all by bicycle. Wow.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, that along the way, a bus did hit him. He flew 20 feet in the air.
Wow.
Another time, um, he got into town late and it was dark, and he bicycled right into a water buffalo.
Oh, geez.
Unless it was a muskox, it was some big.
I I could see how that could happen because I'm a bicyclist, not anything like that. But you get into your own thoughts and you're maybe looking down and you're not even noticing what's ahead of you. And I've almost hit things that were
Yeah,
unexpectedly in the
yeah.
road.
And of
Yeah,
course, this is in a place that's dirt roads anyway, and there aren't
yeah,
street lights or anything. And it's like
yeah.
herd of buff crash. Um, and he flew over that that animal, picked himself up, and carried on. But so there were a lot of impact injuries as well as a lot of miles.
Hmm.
And this was, I don't know how many years later. We're
Hmm.
talking a few decades. And I was working with him, just the way I do, but it's hard to find the impact vectors when they've been buried for so long. It's like the
Hmm.
buried treasure.
And let me just ask you, did he come to you because he'd been in pain for a long time?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he heard
All
of
right.
my work. He'd seen other people. And
Hmm.
I said, just get on the table. Let's see what I
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah.
And yeah, my practice is pretty much all word of mouth.
Hmm. Hmm.
And um, so I worked with him, couldn't find the impact vectors, but orthobionomy was exactly what he needed,
Hmm.
at least at that time, to ease a number of the layers around his chronic problems.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I think it was maybe two more sessions. The impact injuries did surface.
Hmm.
You know how those splinters eventually want to work their way out?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the impact injuries said, "Oh, okay, we're ready to surface and leave." Or we can say his body had nudged them to the surface.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so he was a happy camper
Hmm.
after that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
So it was like maybe 4 or 5 sessions and he was better.
yeah, if that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I'd say my clients average about 4 sessions
Hmm.
a piece.
Hmm.
There's some who have either a lot of stuff going on or they get really curious. It's like, oh, well, what's going on in my body? I want to learn more. I feel fine now, but, you know, and so then they go from feeling like, so it will start out pain,
Mm-hmm.
and then less pain, and then no pain. That's really nice. And that's where most people stop.
Yeah.
But some people continue to, oh, wow, I feel younger and taller. Oh, I have more energy. Oh,
Yeah.
so I don't, I don't pretend to know someone's goals,
Yeah.
um, or their money or time situation.
Yeah.
So, um, I let them guide when they
Yeah.
return, how much they return.
Yeah, and I imagine that a lot of people start off and they just want the pain relief. But then once that's gone, it's that need hierarchy, of,
Right,
oh, well, I don't just want to feel okay and get by. I want to, reach my full potential.
right, right. And or there's this acute thing. Yes, I just fell down and wonked my head. Help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when that goes away, it's like, oh, now my low back that's been chronic for 20 years, it's talking more again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, so what percentage of the people who come to you with pain um, are you successfully able to treat?
Um, Technically, I can't treat them because that's a medical term.
Well,
But
okay. Help.
help. Yeah, I help and I support and facilitate. Um, I'd say 80 to 90%.
Hmm. Hmm.
And usually within the session itself, at least 75% of people feel better.
Hmm.
Not all the way, it'll take more sessions, but they notice a difference right away.
Yeah.
And I find that really rewarding as a practitioner.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think it's especially rewarding because I have this experience too with my work when people have been just everywhere and it's been years and years and they haven't gotten any relief.
Right.
And then you can help them sometimes very quickly.
Yes. Yes. And like you, so many of my new clients say, I have tried everything.
Yeah.
Well, like, obviously you haven't because here you are.
One more thing that you haven't tried.
Right. Right.
It's you go to a physician, a traditional one, and they run through their prescription list and then they're done.
Right.
They send you to the surgeon maybe for some problems, but
Right.
they're done when they run out of, drugs, whether on label or off label. And
Exactly.
then a lot of because they won't tell patients there's more than just drugs, a lot of patients think they've tried everything.
Right.
As I
Right.
said, there's so much more.
Yeah. Or they'll add in acupuncture or chiropractic to that list of. But
Yeah.
and I've actually called or contacted holistic doctors, regular doctors, pain doctors, orthopedists, um, numerous people. I've worked with scoliosis also
Hmm.
successfully, or I
Hmm.
should say the clients were successful in healing. And I've asked for either referrals or let me work in your office.
Hmm.
Low back pain is one of the biggest things that brings people to doctors. It's like doctors can only offer, as far as I know, medicines that take away the pain. They don't take away
Yeah.
the problem.
Right. They
And it's like,
temporarily take it away,
yeah,
maybe partly.
right.
So what's been your success in getting physicians to refer?
Close to zero.
Yeah, that's typical. That's typical. Either they're so brainwashed or they're so competitive or something
Yeah, and
that
I've
they
had
just can't entertain the possibility. I had the same experience when I was first starting out with my work. And, when I got into all this because when I was 25, I hurt my back and I was disabled for 3.5 years.
Oh,
You know, there was one particular physician, an orthopedic surgeon, who spent 45 minutes with me and seemed to be very compassionate. And at the end, he diagnosed me with chronic body pain and said he couldn't help me and to learn to live with it. So, you
at
know,
25. Right.
and yeah, you know, so I went off and I eventually found biofeedback was a key thing for me. So I found biofeedback and I got better. And then many years later, I decided to go into the field and help other people. And so I decided to write to that doctor and say, you know, I appreciate your compassion back then, but you couldn't help me. And I was able to find something that helped. And now I'm in a position to help patients that you see that you can help. And, you know, can we meet and talk? And he wouldn't talk to me.
Right. Right.
So that's the state of it, unfortunately, is that if people want to find treatments that are going to help, they're not going to be able to rely on their doctor to tell them about them.
Yeah. And I have gotten some responses. I mean, usually there's no response, but some of the responses were, can you take insurance? It's like, no, insurance doesn't recognize me.
Right,
Um, my whole field isn't licensed,
right.
and even in California, massage isn't licensed. It is,
Really? Massage
yeah,
isn't licensed in
it's licensed
California?
in some states. You can get certified in California, but it's voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and certification still is different than licensing. Licensing involves a board
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and um, lots of exams and whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, especially in California. But because of California law, I am legal to practice.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
but doctors say no one's going to pay out of pocket. They want insurance to cover. It's like, well, then how have I earned a living all these years?
Well, you know, I think there are some people who can't pay no matter how much they would like to.
Yeah,
There's a lot of other people who, you know, could pay if they were convinced of the value and they set it as their priorities. And
right.
you know, it is harder for people to pay out of pocket. But I think of it in terms of, you know, do you want to get better? And do you want to spend it now or do you want to spend it over years of, you know, suffering and, you
Right.
know, low copays, but you're not getting what you need?
Yeah.
You know,
I
so
have discovered that some auto insurance will pay for what
really,
you do. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Of course, it has to be a car accident, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, you work with people who are injured in car accidents. I also find that with the biofeedback and neurofeedback, that in general, health insurance companies won't pay for it, but you know, auto insurance and sometimes workers' compensation will, because you
right,
know the way I think of it is they have a stake in the person getting better. You know,
right,
it's going to cost them more in the end if the person doesn't get better, so they will pay for more kinds of treatment. Um,
exactly.
where with health insurance, there's nothing, no effect on their bottom line if you stay, you know, sick the rest of your life, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. It's quite a system we live with.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, you're in Berkeley.
I'm in Berkeley and on Zoom.
Oh, okay, and on Zoom. And tell people how they can contact you.
Probably best is through my website, which is sarasunstein.com, and that's Sarah Sara Sunstein Sunstein.com.
Okay.
And there's a whole page of contact info, as well as lots of information about concerns you might have and those that I address, and as well as more explanation of orthobionomy and a little video of me with some clients and talking,
Oh,
explaining
okay.
the work.
Well, that's good. So, and then if people can't remember that, you can also find Sarah on the Alternative Pain Treatment Directory, which is
Yes,
paintreatmentdirectory.com.
right. And
So,
if you can't even remember my name, look for the location in Berkeley.
yeah, I'm not sure how many practitioners we have listed in Berkeley, but I'm sure it's not a unsurmountable number.
Yeah, and I'm the only one
Fine.
doing orthobionomy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today. And, keep up the good work.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and thank you too for the work that you're helping with clients as well as the service you're providing for practitioners.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank
It's
you.
my mission in life.
Okay, carry on. Thank you.